Okay, so after a gap of a week, we are back again and we are willing to talk about your interview questions. And I know we have a one participant who has a ready interview questions thanks to his recent technical project manager interviews. Yeah, so maybe you wanna start?
Sure, sure. Thank you for giving the opportunity. Thank you, Shakir sir. So yeah, recently, yesterday I given one interview. One company name.
So
This hot
ignore the
topic.
name and all, you come to the question. Yeah.
The
Yeah.
question is, they mainly ask the uh, tell me about the yourself, about the roles and responsibilities, all those. After that, they take me in the questions like, let us suppose you have the $50 million project coming on, and you don't know the domains, and your team is also don't know the domains, and the leadership is asking to the deliver this project in the 6 month. This is 1 year duration contract project, fixed budget, and you have to deliver in the 6 month. And then you no need to add the new resource. You don't have any reference. You don't have any materials.
Mhm.
So how do you how what you will do? How do you handle?
So how you replied and what kind of reaction you saw on your reply?
Yeah, well, I said, first I told them that I will call the expert judgment if it is available. He said it's not available. I said I will take the reference documents. He said no available. Google not available. Nothing is available. So then I said, then in that condition, I will bet on myself and I will start learning myself about the domains. And domain is not a big deal for the tech. So I will learn each and everything. Some fixed set of the keyword, some fixed set of the things is there. I will learn, and same transition I will say to the teams.
Okay.
And if the leadership is very keen to take the project in any way, then I will tell the yes, because I don't have option. So I will take that one and I will deliver in the 6 months.
Okay.
Like that I told.
Okay. And what was the reaction of your people?
Yeah, that the persons said nodded the head, and then they move to the next questions like that.
Okay.
They ask counter questions, so many counter questions on that, and then they move no, move to the next questions like that.
So see, my reading is it is very difficult to say what is right approach or what is wrong approach. And whatever answer you give, probably they have since it's a hypothetical situation, people can say anything. Yeah. So that's possible. But in general, if I have to take this thing, I need to start with understanding what is the contract, what are our deliverable. Yeah. So we need to understand what our deliverable. If somebody says you don't know the deliverable, then how do we know it is going to take 6 months? Yeah, so we need to have some understanding of deliverable. It's not like someone wake up in the morning and says you need to create a next satellite for launching and that will happen in 6 months. Yeah, so we need to understand what is the deliverable. So we will ask, whatever is whoever is coming to you, it could be a stakeholder, it could be your sponsor, they have some understanding. I will interview them, I will understand them, what is the situation around. Yeah, now there are historical document not there, but there might be a contract. If it's a fixed bid contract, a fixed bid project, the contract is a good starting point. I need to understand the contract. Now, after understanding the contract, I need to do my own SWOT analysis. I need to do a strength, weakness, opportunity, threat analysis for my organization. Many a time what happens is in the real world as well, sales team of your organization may end up selling the project by giving some promises which are very difficult to implement. And as soon as the project reaches to the delivery team, you realize that this is not going to make money. It is going to create a lot of problem for the organization. So we need to understand what is the story behind. It could be in a reality also, it could be that sales team have sold something, they made some promise, but you cannot meet those promise. So we need to usually do our fact finding and have a current situation assessment as early as possible. If we realize that we are in a mess, then better we realize it early. If we realize this team cannot deliver it, we better realize it early. Now, after that, we need to find a solution. Do we have a time for a learning curve? or do we have a time for outsourcing this contract to someone else, or do we want to discontinue the whole project itself? Yeah, there could be many things, but very difficult to just get into the loop. So I would say that try to find out how to avoid a hypothetical conversation, and try to bring to some fundamental understanding.
35 आया था ना बेटा साइंस में.
Then we don't know exactly how people will be responding to it. Yeah. Good. Anyone else wanna add here before we take another question here? Yeah, on this question itself, what is possibly someone has an idea or thought? Okay, go ahead with your second question. Okay, Kiran, you wanna say something? Go ahead, please. Yeah.
Sorry, see, these days I recent one of my interview. The interviewer asking me an interesting question, even it's interesting for me also. So, what is the new AI evolution for the, especially for the project management tools kind of thing? How it will be impact kind of thing. So he is expecting me. He is expected to answer me, and then how we can utilize as a project manager the new AI kind of thing.
So how we can utilize as a project manager, what that part I'm not getting?
AI tools.
AI tools. Okay.
And tell me that whatever the AI agents or LLM models, and then there are many things evaluating in these days, right? And then yesterday also I have found one tool called, let me tell you, I forget that I have noted somewhere, Huli.io, which is kind of Jira, which is more advanced kind of thing. And then it will help you to generating the reports, etc., in a easier manner. So if this such kind of questions, if I get it from the interviewer, how it can be?
So what I understand is the person is trying to understand how updated are you about the current trend in the industry. That's the goal. Yeah. Now you need to demonstrate your learning and growth mindset here. Yeah. So what experiments you have done rather than, so learning and growth mindset can be done in the format of I keep reading articles, I keep reading trends in the program and project management. That could be a one thing. And you might have studied some tools which are saying they are better AI enabled project management tools and they have these features, or you might have studied what is the advanced features in the Jira has been added in the recent time, which, for example, in a Jira now you can do prompt based searching rather than doing advanced JQL. JQL is not that much complicated anymore. They have an add-on tool which can give you some analysis of your work based on the AI recommendation. So you show some kind of aptitude of what is your learning till now. Now, when you talk about AI based work, there are multiple possibilities, but we should talk about those possibilities which you have already tried. Yeah. So you talk about what you have done so that it is more connected. One is the work management tool alone. Another is a good amount of data analysis. As we keep talking in our previous words, now you can do a significant amount of data analysis by using AI tools, which is far easier than Excel, and it can produce various analytical trend better than Excel. So that's something, if you have used it, you talk about it. There is a good amount of document reading analysis. So now the previous question was saying you have a contract, you have a scope statement, you have this. Now you want to have a summary of contract understood. You want to have a repository where you can keep querying it and keep asking what is our agreement in this particular area. So the knowledge management is another area. As you learn in your PMI ACP has a separate section talking about AI should be used for knowledge management. The PMI talks about it. So knowledge management is another area which enables you as well as your team. There could be various other areas like document creation. You want to create a minutes of a meeting, you can use using AI. You want to create a checklist for definition of done, or you want to create a scope statement for a given thing, or want to create acceptance criteria for user stories. So you have a user stories, you are working with the product owner, you put that user stories into an AI tool, they create an acceptance criteria for you, and then you can discuss it. So you can do estimation using AI tools. You give a user story to the estimation, you give a reference stories to it. It can help you in putting the numbers around that. So there could be many such things which you can do, but you should be talking about something which you have experimented.
Yep. Sure, sure.
Perfect. Yeah, so I thought you were adding to that. Yeah, okay. So I think we can now sequence. I think many of you have a query. So we can put a little tool now. So you can put your question in the chat. Let me put a chat as a reminder here. I am putting hi. and probably we can take a vote. Yeah. So whatever question, you can vote it by doing a thumbs up. So probably we will take it as per the priorities, and I won't miss also. Yeah. So we have questions coming in as per the vote. Yeah. So try to put one question at a time in the chat, but yeah, that's the thing. Yeah. Okay. But I take the question which I have in a chat to start with. So we spoke about a hypothetical situation where you are trying to explore how to resolve a situation where you have no resources, and then we got into something which was what enablement attitude you show for emerging opportunities for it. Yeah, so that something is there. Yeah. Okay, so we have a question: how does risk management is done with the done for projects that are strictly followed Scrum principles? When I tried explaining, there were a lot of follow-up questions, interruption like that's a waterfall, can't be done in Scrum, is it possible, etc. So incidentally, today only I posted a small video on LinkedIn, yeah, which some of you follow me, from our first session conversation where we spoke about risks. Yeah. And we spoke about how do we do risk management in the adaptive way of working as well. So one of the important foundation of Scrum way of working is, since we are working on continuous incremental short cycles, risk managements are taken care automatically. You probably don't have to do any predictive risk management because we are doing small plan do check it cycle. We will be validating our hypothesis. We will be validating our technology. We will be validating our misunderstanding by running small sprint cycles. So first, the organic risk management is we are running small sprint cycle that takes care of risk mostly. Now, on top of it, there could be two levels of risk management. One is risk management for upcoming iteration, release level risk. Sometimes you have a project level planning, but usually you have a release planning. And another is a sprint level risk. So let's talk about sprint level risk first. So when you are planning a sprint, in a sprint planning meeting, you do want to talk about, is there something which can derail our sprint goal? And if yes, what is it and what should we do about it? That's a risk identification and planning. Now, it is not necessary you make a risk register out of it because it's just a 2 weeks job. It could be 3-4 things only, which can be made visual in the, now as per your organization process. Some people put it on a Jira board, some people keep it on a Confluence board, some people just keep it in the mind. Nothing is wrong. Yeah, you can have a risk register also, depending upon your organization style, you do it. But the whole essence is documentation is not the goal. Those kind of risk has to be discussed every day, because in the next daily stand-up, we want to make sure we don't miss our sprint goal. So Scrum Masters team is talking about them every day. Yeah, that's a sprint level risk. You are only focusing on not missing the sprint goal. Now, once you pass through that, then you do a sprint review, iteration retrospective. There you may start thinking about a long-term issues, long-term dependencies, long-term technological risk, long-term estimation errors. You may discover that. Now, you may need to do some actions based on it. The action could be only two: either change the priority of a product backlog or add a new item into the product backlog. So if you want to automate something in order to reduce the technical challenges or the future risk, you need to add the automation as a item in a product backlog and work with the product owner so that we prioritize as well, so it takes care of upcoming risk. Or if you see a particular item is not yet ready, it has a dependencies, it has a risk of getting delayed, you probably prioritize your product backlog accordingly. So prioritizing product backlog by factoring the risk, in our PMI ACP, we give a special word to it. We call it risk adjusted product backlog. So you can use some of those theoretical ideas, but at the same time, as we said before, we better have to use something which you do. So rather than saying it should be done, say this is how we do. Yeah. So you make a story that what do you do? And somebody will say, this is not right. This is waterfall. You can say, I'm not talking about a book tells this. Yeah, I am telling what we do in general. And as much I understand, from a Scrum guide perspective, they talk about risk management by way of doing sprints. Yeah, you would run a frequent sprints and it is taking care of risk because you are collaboratively working together. But in our company, we need to talk about as a daily stand-up also, we discuss what is happening and what can go wrong. Yeah, that is something you can focus on. Okay, so we can have more questions. Please keep putting in the chat. As of now, I had nothing. Yeah, this one is done. And if we will get something, we will take on that. If the asker has a point related to risk management, they can add. If someone else want to add a point here, welcome to add. Yeah, before we get the next question. If anyone want to contribute, share what they do as a part of a Scrum risk management, which could be a good interview answer, please share it here. Yeah.
Sakit, Sanjay here.
Sanjay,
I'm
yeah.
audible.
Yeah.
Sakit, when we are looking at the qualitative risk factors and the quantitative risk factors in one of the videos that you were explaining, so how much of this can be in relation to the Scrum model? Like, when we are implementing Agile and Scrum, so how can we relate those two
Maybe
concepts?
both of them may not be related, maybe. So say many of the Scrum or Agile processes, Scrum does not talk about how do you take care of risk. They don't talk about risk register or anything as is specifically. The incremental working is something you take care. Now, when you go for a scaled agile framework, they also talk about doing roaming of the risk. You identify resolved, owned, accounted, those kind of accepted and mitigated 4 category. They don't even talk about putting probability and impact on the risk. So there is no standard. Yeah. Now you need to come up with your case. Now, do you do in your company? You explain. In general, if you see there is a major stake at hand, and you want to do a prioritization of it and you need more detailed analysis of it, you will do quantitative risk assessment, you will identify expected monetary value, and you will do it. Do we have a framework which is agile oriented, talks about it? In my knowledge, no, but you can say I do it. Yeah. And you have learned it in your PMI ACP content. You have learned how to calculate expected monetary value and prioritize the product backlog as per expected monetary value. So you are putting a quantitative risk assessment. In general, when you are doing sprint planning, you may not do that kind of analysis. You just have a verbal conversation talking about probability and impact.
Yeah, thanks. So we can say that though the Scrum this thing does not really look at risks and all this thing, but at an overall project perspective, in terms of the long term, so we can have the qualitative risks and quantitative risks defined with respect to the outcomes that we are looking at a longer time frame.
My advice is give an example. Yeah, so don't make a generic statement. You say that there was a project I was working in, and since this project was involving this kind of stakes, because of that, we run a simulation and we created multiple scenarios and possibilities. And based on that, we could prioritize the product backlog. We were unable to do it till the time we do that analysis, and that analysis in a project management term is also called quantitative analysis.
Yeah.
This was one of the case we did it. Other time we usually have a verbal conversation, but whenever the stakes are high, you give an example, then we do it. Yeah. The whole important thing from a project management perspective, when we are going for a project manager interview, is our focus should be how we solve the problem rather than which framework says what. Yeah, we need to say this is how we solve the problem. Now, it is always good if we can match with the theory and say that this is the theory behind it, but this is our problem and we solved it in this particular manner. Somebody will say it's a good or bad.
Yeah.
Great. So we have some questions. Yeah. So what are the checklist or details I need to cover for a PM transition in the middle of the project? Yeah. So in a simple word, you need to study the project management plan. So actually it all depends upon the maturity of the process. Yeah. If you are project manager and your role is just a facilitation, then the PM has not much to transition. The team is there, which will be transitioning everything. Yeah, they are there. Yeah, they are continuing it. But if you are focusing on more, the PM was doing many things as a thing, then you need to definitely ask what was the thing the person was doing. So I need to understand the role of the project manager in that particular environment. If it is a predictive life cycle, our whole process is studying the project management plan. So you need to make sure that both of you go through together and study the project management plan, and project management plan should be giving you all the ideas where the things are and where you should be going. Yeah. But if that process is not there, you need to find out as per the organization standard. Now, I can't say you need to make sure the project manager gives you a scope statement. The interviewer will say, we don't have a scope statement. We work on user story. So, or a project manager has nothing to do with the scope statement. This is done by the product owner and the team. Then we are in a little confusion. You can't say that I need to talk about the various risk project manager has maintained. You can say, oh, we don't have a risk register. So I need to understand what is the process here, which is called project management plan. And as per the project management plan, I need to understand where are the artifact, who is doing what, and I will navigate as per the project management plan. Yeah. So from a beginning of the project till the end of the project management plan is a term which used to guide everything. But you better give an example that, I was working in a particular organization where I transitioned to someone or I took the work from someone, and this is what I did. I had a meeting with the team. I understood the project management plan. I did a shadowing with my project manager for 1 week. So I did a tacit knowledge transfer as well. It is just not a documentation based knowledge transfer. And after that, I got to the action and I started working in that particular area. So that is a good thing to do in an interview setup, in my view. So can you give a quick idea on formal process and tool to handle resource, budget, risk, and changes? Yeah, so difficult to say all these things in a one go. Risk we already discussed. Yeah, budget significantly depends upon the type of life cycle you follow, because as we discussed in our previous conversation, predictive life cycle is a bottom-up budgeting, adaptive life cycle is a capacity-based budgeting. Yeah, so we need to understand, and budget and resource goes hand in hand. So we need to see as per the context. The default theory of budget, risk, resource is available in your PMP content. So whenever you do PMP, or if you have already done your PMP certification, you probably want to study that portion. That's the theory part of it. But we need to map it as we mapped it today with the risk part of it. Yeah. And if you have any specific part out of these three, then put it in the chat. Probably we will take care of it. Yeah. So Shobha is sharing risk for the sprints and upcoming sprints we were discussing in the ART sync meeting. Good. So you can say in your company, you had a rule that risk which crosses a particular threshold, your release train engineer expects the Scrum Master to discuss them as a part of Scrum or a ART sync meeting. Great. Yeah, that's a good thing, because you need to keep them in hand because you want to make sure they are moving forward. Upcoming sprint risk, maybe your PO may get discussed in a PO sync meeting. You may have a merging of code sync and PO sync, then they may get discussed in the ART sync itself. Yes, perfect. Yeah, as per your framework, you do that. Great.
Okay, I have a question.
Go ahead, Mina. Yeah.
Yeah, so we all know that when it comes to when a company is working with safe agile, so we usually have the PI planning where the risks are proactively identified. So what happens with in an environment where there's no PI planning and we just have to start implementing the Scrum at once? How do we handle these risks? At what level do we identify these risks and start mitigating against them?
So see, one thing is, if PI planning is not happening, from a scaled agile perspective, you are not using safe. Yeah, so that's clear. Yeah, so no PI planning, no safe. Yeah, I think we both are on the same page. Now, if no PI planning, and which means company is not willing to use safe and they see it not an appropriate framework. Okay, that's a starting point. At the same time, they are looking for little long-term view. And your question is, how do I do a long-term planning, long-term risk identification when we are not using safe? So in a before safe, the idea of that long-term planning used to call release planning. Even in the initial stages of scaled agile framework, they used to call PI planning release planning only. Over a period of time, they changed the name. So what is a release planning? Release planning is a planning of a given duration. It could be 3 months, it could be 2 months, yeah, usually few sprints. And the goal is it produce some kind of tangible, clear goal. For example, launch of an MVP, you have a release goal in mind. So with the product owner, with the release goal in mind, with the estimation of the user stories done in a story points, with the forecasted velocity you have, you are planning the projection for upcoming releases. And when you are, or one release, now when you are planning that release, you may discover that in this particular release, these are the risks. So as per that, you will be reprioritizing your release backlog, which is a subset of a product backlog, and you will be adding some action items to take care of those risks. That could be the long-term planning. Without using scaled agile framework, you may start using a activity or a meeting called release planning.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect. Yeah. Okay. So we move forward. Let us say you have newly joined company as a program manager, and there are 3 product owner in the company in 3 domain reporting to you. What transition do you do with them on a first day? So in general, the transition word I assumed is that someone gives work to you. Yeah, you transition. Here it seems to be that you want to work with them. Yeah, so maybe the word is little reverse. In a simple word, what I'm trying to understand based on your question is that you join as a program manager, and there are 3 teams which are working, and in their company style, they have a person named product owner who reports to you. Yeah. And how do you start with it? Now, this is a little weird framework that is not going to happen that often, because the essence of role called product owner is a business oriented role. It's a domain oriented role. The term which is associated with project management or program management is more delivery oriented role, integration oriented role, not necessarily a decision maker role for product way of working. So I suspect how to answer that, because it's not a usual thing. So I need to understand what is my real role. Yeah, what is the role of a program manager is integrating and ensuring that we are moving towards a common goal. Now, if they are a product owner, the common goal also has to be identified by some high level product people. Now, if I am that people, then I am doing more product management than anything else. So yeah, I probably take an introduction from them and try to understand what is their role and what is my role. I develop some working agreement and try to understand what they were doing before, so that I can probably start moving. Yeah, but little weird. I find difficult to understand this question, because this is not a usual way I see organizations are organized. Yeah. Yeah. So Sanjay has a nice thing. He's saying, understand the project objective, outcome, timeline, stakeholders, and set up a one-on-one meeting. Yeah, you do. Yeah, that's a great idea. You have all these things, you do it. Yeah. So it's more like you are onboarding yourself. Yeah, you can do it. Yeah. But POs reporting to program manager, even scaled agile framework will not say so. But
That's what I was, while I was giving the answer, I was just thinking these are weird questions. But anyway, I given the same answers. Like I will get the all the information reference from them and discuss all the details.
so my thing is that you have given 6-7 interviews in the recent time, and please don't just take a one outlier interview as a reference. Yeah. So if you see a trend, maybe there is a type of question which keeps coming from one interview to another interview, then you can say these are the questions I should be worried about. But in your, as we were discussing before we started recording, you have given 6-7 interview. In a 6-7 interview, you face a one interview where you find everything is weird. Better not to think too much about it. Yeah, you can say it was an outlier. So I'm not saying that each question which you don't understand, you consider outlier, but if it was a less than 10% case, because you can't probably predict what are the possible question one interviewer will ask. Yeah, and it is not coming as a majority thing, then you can easily ignore these kind of things. Yeah, rather than keep thinking about them, because the next interview will not have these questions. So you better focus on the one which probably will have more based on your total sum of 7 interview experience rather than a 1 interview experience.
Sure, thanks.
Okay. So we have a question. What type of question that we can ask when the interviewer is asking, do you have any questions for me? So see, this is very, very important thing you need to think about. Yeah. Very, very important, because many a time we get judged based on the type of questions we ask. Yeah. So it depends upon how the conversation has like been. If you are confident about it, usually asking about role, asking about the duration of the project, whatever discussion is done, the type of technology they are working in, the type of teams which is expected to work, showing interest in the work is a good idea. Rather than asking, do you allow work from home? I know they're important question, but maybe not a good question for interviewer. You can ask later with the HR, or asking, what is the process of salary here, how they calculate tax. So those kind of things can make things off track. I know many people ask those questions also. In my real experience, when I ask people that, do you have a question for me? They ask all these kind of things. What time you guys start? Do you have a fixed office start or off time and all? So those kind of things can make people feel that you are too much worried about these logistics and all these things, and you are no more interested in the work we are doing. Yeah. So try to pick up the conversation which is coming in the work area. That's a good thing. Another thing is that you can ask, do you have any feedback for me? That is also a good thing. What kind of feedback you want to give for me to focus on area which can help me in growing in my professional growth. That's a good question. Then it shows openness. It shows a learning mindset. It shows you are willing to take a challenge and criticism. You are open for criticism. So show openness for criticism. Show openness or a willingness or curiosity about the company, about the company's vision, about the product, or about the role they are offering to. Not too much worry about your well-being that much. Yeah, maybe you can discuss it with the HR. You may not accept the offer if you are not liking that. Yeah, but in the interview, I would say that you don't do that. Yeah, that's my advice. Okay. We have question coming in. Okay, so what are the critical factor I need to consider for go live cutover planning? How advanced I start planning for it? What are the best practices? Someone speaking in before we talk about this question? Okay, no. Okay, so see, when we teach PMP, we remind that rollout and transition planning should start from the day one of the project, because it is also a part of your overall requirement and the scope. So I need to understand, even in the project management, we remind people to capture transitioning requirement as a separate entity, so that we understand what is the expectation of the organization for doing transitioning. Yeah. So training needed, blackout time needed, data migration needed, amount of support needed, duration of support needed. All those things has to start as a part of your requirement collection itself. That's a predictive life cycle. And predictive life cycle talks about that, yes, you may not be planning that activity level detail. You may keep it as a big WBS. We do talk about progressive elaboration. We are not saying the go live will happen after 1 year and you are doing activity planning for it and you are putting a training date in the advance. That is not expected, but you do identify work packages which will be involved during that particular time. That's a predictive life cycle. In general, even in a predictive life cycle as well as adaptive, the recommendation is we do incremental transition rather than waiting for the whole project to finish to do a transitioning. Now, if you are following agile ways of working, their pure understanding would be that your definition of done should include everything which makes the system available to the end customer. So you don't need a separate planning because your DoD takes care of it. Now, that can happen after certain time, but may not be from the day one itself. So in order to answer this question, you need to come up with your experience level detail only. And the major differentiator would be that you are doing end of the life cycle or you are doing incremental, because when you are doing incremental, you need to manage the current development and the go lives in parallel and ensure that you have a mechanism to support their business after they go live along with doing the new development. So bring that case, and definitely in the organization, you will have a checklist. Yeah, because it's a very critical activity, and that checklist may be guided by your organization process assets, or you might create specific to a requirement of the project. But you don't want to have a situation where We don't have a clarity what all we have to do in order to make system available to the business. Do we have a standard checklist? I don't think so. It may be there in your company as a recommended part of it, because the situation varies. Sometimes you have a data migration, sometimes you don't have, sometimes you have a systems which are installed on client devices, sometimes you have a software as a service. All these things will be factored when you are planning the go live. Okay, so Sanjay has answered something. So from a Scrum perspective, safe perspective, there is nothing like you need to do go live planning as a before iteration, after iteration. No framework suggests anything about it. So even if you are answering, you can't say that as per Scrum, we do this. No, you need to focus on your experience. Yeah, safe is also not saying that you need to do a go live planning as a part of a PI planning, or you can do as a part of definition of done. Both are okay. Yeah, it may happen that you may run multiple PIs before you go live. So there is no defined process of going live. From a safe perspective, this is that soon you should reach to a continuous deployment and continuous and release on demand. That's the word they use. But deployment should be continuous and release can happen whenever stakeholder wants. So that depends upon a context. Very difficult to say that this will be the trigger and here we have to do it. Yeah, as early as possible, as frequent as possible. And the way you talk about requirement, you need to talk about transitioning and change management requirement as well. And there is no set of things. It may require training, it may require user manual, it may not require anything out of it. Yeah. So difficult to just use a framework to answer that. Okay, what are the initial steps we follow to transition a waterfall project to safe? The scaled agile has their full business model, and that thing is called safe implementation roadmap. For that, you need to learn a little bit about safe. We have a 50+ videos on YouTube that can help you. But one of the important thing is safe has no project. Yeah, there is no concept of project in safe. There is no concept of you do project in you do one project safe and one project not safe. Concept wise, it is not there. So what they will say, don't move the project to safe, move the company to safe. Yeah. So that implementation, that's a term, they call it safe implementation roadmap. So they will say that, guys, you want to use scaled agile framework for your development work. Let's talk about how do we onboard you and take you for a scaled agile journey. And yes, you will start with a one group. You can call it one project, one group. They don't call it project. And say one group can get onboarded by way of starting the PI, by starting the running the agile release train, and over a period of time other groups can also join in. Yeah, so the term is safe implementation roadmap, but it is not about project by project. It is for the roadmap for the whole organization. Yeah, because there is no concept of project there by default. Now organization may be creating and mixing that concept. That is perfectly possible, but it's not there as per the framework. Yeah. Okay, I normally ask them what is the work that they expect from the role they are interviewing, day-to-day activities. Okay, good. Yeah, so that's a good question. Somebody's asking. I think that's an answer to the previous question. What kind of a question you can ask? So yeah, that's there. I would say if I ask this question, better first I tell that based on my understanding of the job description and based on my conversation here, these are the things I understand is expected from this role. Yeah, what am I missing? Yeah, so I can ask like that, because see, the understanding is this should be the question which interviewer asks you, what is going to be your day-to-day activity? Yeah. So I need to know my day-to-day activities because I'm applying for a role. So little bit careful about this way, because as if it can be asked in the beginning of the interview maybe, but at a later stage, depends. Yeah, if you see that thing is okay, maybe go ahead. But to me, it may make me feel, then, okay, what we were talking till now. Yeah, so that could be a little, and it's too detailed, day-to-day activities. So that's too much. Yeah. Okay, we have a question. When you are facilitating a session with a stakeholder in a complex initiative, when a problem statement is being discussed along with the objectives and goal of the project, including dependency, do we also discuss the release plan? If yes, how elaborate? at this level difficult. Yeah. So say overall depends, but in general, the word roadmap comes, which is above the release plan. Yeah. So when we talk about agile planning onion, yeah, as you might have seen this concept sometime, we start by maybe you have a product level strategy, product level vision, which might be driving product level or a solution level roadmap. And from solution level roadmap or a product level roadmap, you come to releases. And from release, you come to iteration. And from iteration, you come to a day. So looking at your conversation where you are discussing the overall objective, maybe you need to talk about roadmap first. Now the milestones on the roadmap will be releases. The initial milestones may be well refined. The later one are not well refined. Yeah. So you prepare the roadmap, which will be used using your some amount of estimation process and capacity allocation. If you are following pure agile, you might be using epic or a theme level roadmap creation. And out of that, you will identify various release points, and then gradually you will do those release level planning. Yeah. Now that's the process. If you use any framework, more or less they will use their own jargons, but that's the thing they will put into. Yeah. So even if we take a reference for such kind of long-term planning and all as a reference point. So see, Scaled Agile also has copied from the thing which were already in establishment, but sometimes people find it easy to directly refer to a Scaled Agile. That is what they also tell, that they says before PI planning, you need to have a PI roadmap. And before PI roadmap, you need to have a solution roadmap. So if I use as an example, you don't have to follow SAFe only. So they tell that you can have a solution vision. From a solution vision, you can have a solution roadmap. From a solution roadmap, you can have a PI roadmap, and then you will have a PI plan, and then you have an iteration plan, and then you have a day-to-day activities plan. Yeah. Now, how do we prepare that roadmap? That is a strategic work. It is not a tactical work. So based on how much money we are willing to put, what is our future strategy, what is the high-level epics, and based on that, we plan those roadmaps. Yeah, that's the terminology. Release planning comes little later because release planning is expected to have more details than the roadmap. Okay, yeah. Anyone want to contribute to something which we have discussed till now? I think it's been a 40 minutes. Yeah, if you have any point to make and for any of the question, yeah, just unmute and speak. We want to hear opinions because my answers are just one answer. You may have a other answer as well. So when I say safe with one team, the meaning of one team means 100 people. Yeah. So one team means one group. I was just avoiding the word agile release train. So you definitely start safe with a one group. Yeah, one group. And that group should have more than 50 people. Yeah, not one agile team. Else it will be too much overhead for implementation. Yeah. So one group, agile release train. That's the word we should be using. Okay, so opportunity to add something which we have been discussing till now.
I think Sasi's question on how to do an idea on request for proposals, in which stage this is. So basically, I think Sachi, you get a opportunity request and it is floated by the clients. So your client solution group, which are hunting in the open ground, right? So they catch hold of these RFPs and or the opportunities, and these are drilled down to the delivery teams. So once they do a qualification round. They initially pitch for the sales teams will also come with along with client solutioning group, which is normally called the CSG guys. They are in working tandem with the delivery team. Uh, and also they help delivery to come up with the responses, how to tune those responses to the different questions. Usually RFPs are not short. They usually spread around to 50 to 100 questions around the project. Typically, if it is an ERP project, it might span between the modules, right? So each module might have about 30, 40 questions, and then your overall RFP might be a 250, 300 kind of questions that we have to answer. But in a nutshell, when the RFP or the before RFP, there'll be I think the RFI comes in, request for information. And the request for information is something that do you have the capability or the competency in the organization to handle this kind of a project, right? So at that point, you need to showcase what your previous projects in that specific area of product or domain, and then based on that, that's the qualification. The criteria would be there, and then the client will evaluate multiple vendors or system integrators, that what we call, not vendors but system integrators. Primarily, all service-based companies are more or less service integrators who help implement products from Oracle or any other product companies, right? So we are all doing that.
So I think it all depends upon what you use. Yeah. So
Yeah.
say if the person
That's
is not
what it is.
working in Oracle, if the person is not working in ERP, and if he starts giving
Yeah.
these answers, it could be little trouble. Yeah.
Yeah.
So thank you for pointing out. I think I missed this question. So we need to think about what your company does or what is your experience. Yeah, that's a starting point. And what is your source? Why do you do a particular project? Yeah, from where the thing starts. So as Sanjay was nicely mentioning, in a particular context, in his context, and that answer is great for him, yeah, because he has worked in that area. But you need to start with your context, yeah. So you need to understand how my work gets started. Now, sometimes you may not have a visibility about it. You have someone telling you do this project and you do that project. But especially if you are a project manager, as Sanjay was pointing out, most likely you will have a visibility because you are a senior role. So the whole essence is not initially when someone is exploring your company's capability, they may give you a problem statement. And against that problem statement, you create high-level solution statement from your side. Yeah? And only when the solution statement looks good and feasible and cost matching, then only client may want to work with you. Yeah? That's a process. So the mechanism of giving a problem statement, one of the mechanism of giving problem statement is called request for proposal. We have this problem. Can you give a proposal for it? And your company, now you may have a designated group in your company who does high-level evaluation of that work, do a solutioning of that work. Ideally, it should involve project manager, but there is no rule. Even PMP doesn't say that project manager must be involved. Sometimes it is there as an expert because project is not started. This thing may not get converted into the project because not all RFP you will win. So there will be a group, you call them customer success group, as Sanjay, you need to pick up your names, yeah, as per your organization. Think about who are those group, who are those people, and those group will be providing the answers to those things, and they will be asking terms and conditions, they will be asking price and other things, and that thing is called proposal. And once the request for proposal get responded with the help of proposal, if your proposal gets selected, then you go for agreement. Agreement could be a contract as a thing. And once agreement is done, then definitely project team and execution team is expected to come in. Yeah. Thank you, Sanjay, for pointing out. Yeah, I think I missed this in this scrolling.
Thank you, Sankit. So I just wanted to know, like, it starts from the salesperson, right? So from the sales team, it should from customer to sales, and then again sales to the development team or the
customer
product team.
Sale, yeah, sale to customer, yeah, interaction few time, product team, some experts may be involved. Yeah, once you get a sign off, then bigger team will get involved. Yeah. So
Okay.
say I want to make a website and I give you a call to your company that can you make a website for me? Now your salespeople say this guy needs a website and they are asking for it. What is our proposal? So they give a proposal, may ask some technical help. But as of now, I have not said I will get work from you. I'm asking three more vendors to provide the website related proposals. Now, out of three, I will select one. Now, if your company is that one which got selected, yeah, then the salespeople will finalize the deals and term thing, and afterwards they will hire, your company will onboard developer testers to make that website, because till now the things are not clear. Now, exactly how it is done depends. Mostly there will be sometime they have a special team doing this work only, as Sanjay was mentioning, because in a day, salespeople may get 10 calls and hardly one get converted into real projects. So they need a dedicated group who can handle it. In a large organizations, they have a dedicated group. In a large organization, if the process and project is complex like ERP and all, the RFP's length is also big. Responding to RFP itself take 3-4 weeks in a complex situation. It could be as simple as it get done in a 1 day or 2 days also, yeah, because if it is a smaller work. So we need to bring our story and explain it there.
Okay, thank you, Sakit.
Good. Yeah. Mira, you want to say something?
But I have a question. Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious. In the footwear project that you shared with us last time, so I realized that I was going through the backlog. I realized that I didn't see like requirements for like compliance requirements and security requirements. So I'm just curious if those specific things, since we are working in a cross-functional team in this Scrum environment, so where do we implement those requirements in the process?
So say, since you are using SAFe, you need to have an enabler about it. Yeah, that's the word they use. Yeah. So SAFe will say that you must create enabler type of work item in your ART backlog and your team backlog to implement the compliances. Yeah, that's the SAFe jargon for it. Yeah. But in general, it is a work item in a simple word. And whatever is the place where we are storing that work item, we have to store it there. Now, there is a difficulty to tell that who will do that work item. You may have a specialized group who might be working on those compliance items. That's a possibility. Or it may be that on a day-to-day working, everybody has to do some part of the compliance related work. So we need to figure that out. Yeah, that is something we need to figure it out, but we can't avoid it. The another thing could be, it will not be a user story kind of format. Yeah, so that's why SAFe put a different tag to it, enabler, because it may not get split into small items. It may get split into small technical items, and those technical items may not produce the value as they gets done. Only when a lot of things get done, then only you become compliant. And there is a possibility. So type of compliance which we are dealing with, first thing is we cannot avoid. We should not be delaying it very long, because it can impact the architecture. It can bring new rework if we are delaying it for very long. So we need to discover them, discuss between architect and the product management. I'm using scaled agile jargon in your case. So from a SAFe perspective, architect should be more owning the compliance related work usually. Yeah, so we need to understand who are the experts of that particular area. There could be some business stakeholders who may be closely involved. And in our PI planning meeting, we need to plan them as well, because they are coming as a ART backlog items. Yeah, that's a safe way of doing.
Thank you.
Perfect. Yeah. And I think that also answers the chat question which we had. Working on a government environment is about compliance and meeting regulatory requirement. How do we blend the control and structure environment in adaptive projects? So yeah, in a simple word, something which we said, SAFe recommend like that. If you are not using that, then you can say we are working on a hybrid environment. So see, the idea of compliance is you need to follow a particular protocol. You need to follow a particular thing that might be well defined. So you need to plan it in a holistic manner. You may not need to do incremental exploration of that compliance requirement. You may implement incrementally, but you need to have a holistic view. So depending upon the context, we need to understand that this is how we need to take care of it. Better not to call them user stories, because they are not adding direct value to the user. They are adding value indirectly. Call them as a compliance work or a compliance requirement or enabler or something, and use different tools or I would say artifacts to understand those compliance requirement. Other than user stories and acceptance criteria, you may have your specific customized way of talking about that compliance requirement and testing them, and then have a audit and verification and validation process which are customized to those compliance requirement. Maybe your team is not able to do that level of testing. You need to figure it out. How do we do that? Yeah. So, and in some projects, especially you work in a regulated environment, your whole project might be a compliance requirement. Or maybe have a more percentage of compliance requirement, less percentage of customer-centric requirement. So I, as a project manager or a leader, I will say, let's bifurcate the requirement as a customer-centric requirement and compliance requirement or technical requirement. Customer-centric requirements are user story oriented, but compliance requirement are compliance oriented. Okay, so that's what I can say. If anyone has a point to add or anything which I'm missing here. Okay, looks like we are about to conclude. If anyone has something, we have 4 or 5 minutes more to allocate to this conversation. If you want to talk or share something, yeah. Go ahead, Richard, yeah.
Hi, Saket. I really appreciate you so much for this, this content. And I've actually been asking about this compliance and about the working in regulatory environment. And it's just about my recent interviews with probably the civil service here in the UK as a delivery manager. I've gotten 3 interviews in the last 2 weeks, and this is where I think the issues have always been coming up about the management of regulatory requirements. And unfortunately, the question has always been, how do you consider this as something that you have to take very seriously when you are discussing your PI, PBI with the PO and other stakeholders. Given the fact that you also have other requirements that are really pressing, that are very. So, and
I'm listening
my
to
answers in my responses, I've always been trying to, because I watch so much of your videos, and I've always been giving back to them about the fact that we need to take it as a risk base, given it the fact that we need to consider the risk aspect of not consider the regulatory requirements as key, by dropping, dropping that for the business requirements. Because they said when you have a business requirement that is quite critical, and given the fact that this is also required by the community that this civil service is actually supporting. So this is a very critical requirement, but you have also another regulatory requirement. How do you think you want to manage the two? And I try to give them, the explanation that you have given at all times, but it seems they are not really welcoming that by letting them know that we can look at, if there's a buffer, we can manage the two, we can run them on the parallel in the sprint. If otherwise, we have to see, since they don't have the same goal, we have to drop one for the other, consider, the risk value of that requirement, which is actually regulatory. But they are not, actually happy with those responses. I don't really understand what else you think we can say regarding this.
So I think your response is great. Yeah, that is, and again, depending upon who is asking what, their understanding and acceptance may vary. But from a response perspective, I don't see much deviation. But yes, the idea from a scaled agile, if they are using SAFe as a jargon, is then we create enablers and we can use prioritization. The SAFe tells when you are doing PI planning, you can also focus on capacity allocation. So you can now, maybe that's a jargon they wanted to hear, maybe, yeah. So capacity allocation is a terminology SAFe uses, which tells that for a given PI, we can allocate X percentage of capacity for enabler work and the remaining capacity for other type of work. Yeah. So you can say X for enabler and Y for features. So with the system architect and the business owners and product management, I, as a facilitator in a safe language release train engineer, ensure, or a product management, I, as a release train engineer, ensures the product management and system architect agrees to capacity allocation first in a PI planning meeting boundary itself, first before we start even a PI planning meeting. Now, once that is agreed upon, then the enabler part goes to system architect kitty or those respective stakeholder, they will prioritize it, and the feature part will go to the business stakeholder kitties. But now inside the enabler, how do you prioritize one enabler over the other? Again, as you said, it's a collaborative working only. If you can only take one, either you change the capacity allocation rule or you need to do the conversation only. There is no way to say that this is good or this is bad. But the only thing which SAFe recommends is when you are comparing the enablers with features, it might not be a good idea. So they tell that it will be difficult to prioritize features and enablers together, because features gives a direct business value and enabler or compliance requirement may give an indirect business value. So sometimes they may not be compatible for comparison. That's why SAFe recommends better you do a bucketization in the format of capacity allocation. But yeah, I do see many organizations do a comparison together as well. They don't see the need of a bucketization. Yeah, these are the two theories, but rest depends upon what they want to do there.
All right, that's great. So do we now classify regulatory requirements as an enabler?
Yeah, in a SAFe, yes. Yeah. So SAFe tells that enabler could be, in a SAFe theories, they tell there could be 4 types of enabler. They call it exploratory, architectural, compliance, and infrastructure. Yeah. So these are the 4 types of enabler tell. So they officially tell compliance kind of work is a enabler from a SAFe jargons.
But the organization is not actually practicing SAFe. They are not practicing SAFe, nor do they practice less. So this is just a department. They don't practice such. So what do we classify such a requirement? Do we still consider it as enabler or part of key requirements, which is a functional requirement?
So in general, it all depends upon the ownership also. So say if the guy who is giving you a functional requirement is capable of analyzing and prioritizing it, then that guy may keep it in his bucket. And if you realize that I am less qualified to prioritize and understand this particular work, then he may put into another bucket. Yeah. So we need to understand who is the source, who is the guy who can prioritize it, who understand the validation criteria around it, who is the one who can help the team to implement it, and accordingly you probably will be bucketizing those requirements.
Thank you so much.
Good. Yeah.
Thank you.
Great. So thank you everyone for your participation. And I know we explored some of the questions, and you all are pretty active nowadays on our WhatsApp groups. So stay there and do share your follow-up queries, questions, comments in a WhatsApp group. I will put this video soon on the YouTube. And again, the same group will get the link also shared. Yeah. Bye for now. Thank you for participation.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you.
Saket.
Thank you, Saket.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks.
Thank you, everyone.